And we will have sound from Liz. She just has it turned down right now. Or she's muted. Sorry, it's not turned down. She's muted. Yes, Judy, this is, we are live from Petoskey in the gallery. Kind of a nice way to do things. Oh, okay. So it looks like the crowd's not all there in Petoskey yet. So they have 25 people that registered for this event. Obviously, we have to be mindful of our numbers in both locations, but as you know, the state is loosening restrictions, so it's interesting to start going back to some normalcy. Hi, Linda.
Hello. Yes, I was just delayed reading that Plan A is in effect.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. You read it. Fantastic.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. We're going to have our first opening reception June 25th. And I'm so excited because it's been such a long time. So, yes. Yeah. And I know Liz is commenting how unusual it is to see so many people in the gallery.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yes, look at them all.
I know. So this is being recorded. I guess I should pause it. I'm going to pause it again because it just means more editing.
It's super exciting to see all of these faces. I don't know about you, but this is just day 2 for me being out without a mask. Yes. So how exciting. And our first really event in the space since COVID changed the world. So welcome to the galleries. My name is Liz Erlewine. I'm the visual arts director for Crooked Tree. I'm based here in Petoskey, and I coordinate exhibits for our Petoskey location as well as our Traverse City location. And I'm just thrilled to have you here to talk about this exhibit as it comes to a close, A Land's Conservancy, Reclaiming Nature. So I'm not going to talk long, but I want to tell you a little bit about how this started. And then also you're going to see me walk around with this cart over here. I'm going to wave hello. You guys can wave hi. On Thursday evenings, we have a membership level called our guild membership, our artist guild membership. Some of you in the room may be members. And we do a Zoom meetup every Thursdays at 5. So we have guild members joining us virtually, even though they can't be here in the room with us. So hi, guild members. Okay. So just by way of introduction, I'm really excited to see the show come together and have it on display here for all of you. I got to know Raymond Gaynor about when I moved north, and apparently he wasn't here much more before that. So we kind of joined the region around the same time. And I came across Raymond's work through one of our annual jury photography shows. He had a beautiful piece that I believe was an award-winning piece, and I ended up using it for some of the promotional material, and I was just really taken with those images. And then Raymond's been involved with the Art Center, and I would just kind of see what's he doing, what's he up to. And during, I think, maybe one of our guild meetups, he shared some images that he had taken of the Offield Family Viewlands. And he was talking about this piece of property and the work that the Conservancy was doing. And I was captivated not only by the image, but also the idea that was being captured within that story, right? The idea of conserving space and how we conserve a moment or an experience through the camera, through a photograph, how the land can conserve itself, right, through time, which is really what this exhibit is about. And so I said, hey, Ray, do you have more? Do you have more images? You know, and he said, well, of course I have more. So that started a conversation that really has taken a number of months of back and forth, sharing images and thinking about what we wanted to share and how we wanted to share it with all of you. So I think before we turn it over to Ray, I want to shout out my friend back here, Derek Shields.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. I am the Director of Stewardship Conservancy. So I'm honored to be here with Raymond. And so if you have any questions about the Conservancy's work and the future vision we have for this wonderful project, we have you so well here. It's been awesome. I'm happy to answer those questions.
Great. And then one more shout out, I really want to recognize our visual arts presenting sponsor, Christie's, North Harbor Christie's. They do a lot to support art and culture in the community. I hope you recognize that. We've got flyers outside of the other gallery, and we're so appreciative of their support. It really makes it possible to do these programs and to make them available to you. So thanks to Christie's. So with that, Ray, you can take us where you want us to go. We're going to do a walking tour of the gallery.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming this afternoon and coming with me and walking through this exhibit. I'm so proud of it and so happy to be able to do that. First of all, though, I really would like to thank Crooked Tree Art Center for all the work and support they've given me, and specifically to Liz for all the guidance and help and encouragement that she gave to me. It wouldn't have happened without her help. So thank you, Liz. Also, I want to thank Little Traverse Conservancy. The work that LCT does is tremendous in the northern Michigan area with looking at the preserves, and specifically Ann Fleming, who was really so helpful in guiding me along the way as well. So that was very helpful in that standpoint, and I think the work that we have here is just stands for itself as here's something that's really going to be for future generations to be able to share. So with that, let me give you a little bit more background of why I got into this. I had the privilege to play Little Traverse Golf Course a number of times, and it was always a really challenging golf course. And so that it had a lot of hills, it had a lot of tight fairways, they say, tough greens that were hard to read. And it was always a challenge from that standpoint. But one of the things that really came out, and above all others, was the beauty of the course itself. The vistas were just gorgeous. You couldn't find it in other parts of the world. And to have that privilege of being able to play that was one that I've always thought about. And so when I found out that Little Traverse Conservancy was acquiring the property, I contacted my friend Ian Bunn, who was the treasurer at that time for LCC. And I asked him, who should I contact in order to get permission to shoot the viewlands? And Ian said, oh, why don't you contact Ann Fleming? And I knew Ann because I worked with her a couple of years before shooting some new properties that came under the stewardship of LTC. And Ann said, sure, please go on, do that. And so she agreed that, yeah, I could do it. And I would provide all of my images to Little Traverse Conservancy that they could use on the promotional and marketing activities in any way they wanted to do that. So when I started, it was not necessarily had an image of doing an exhibit at all. It was one that I just wanted to capture some of the beauty that was there and being able to promote that for other people to see and to go out and enjoy. So as I started taking images, I would send them over to Ann and to LCC, and they would, post some of those. And I also did some postings myself on social media. And one was on Crooked Tree Photography Society's Facebook page. And I was getting in other Facebook pages as well. And I was getting good feedback from my peers and so forth on some of the images. And Liz commented a few times. And that's, I think, kind of started that dialogue as she had brought out so clearly. And one that kind of prompted me to do more. And as I wanted to shoot more in doing that. So the thought originally was, okay, I wanted to get a couple of the seasons or show some of the differences compared to a golf course. And that's one thing I kept in mind as well. When I took my images, I was looking for the compositions that I wanted. I didn't want to highlight that this was a golf course. I wanted to really highlight that this was a nature preserve. And as it started to regrow and nature starting to take that over, it's one of the things that I wanted to really bring out in my images. So if we kind of walk around this way, maybe we'll just kind of go around and I'll talk a little bit about each one of the images. This one was what I call my artist statement. And this was one of the earlier ones that I took. And remember, I'm just out there and I'm enjoying the vistas. I'm enjoying the views. And so the sky it was kind of a cold, early May day or late afternoon. And I was out there and the wind was blowing and the clouds were kind of screaming across. But I wanted to take some pictures of that. And I did take a few other ones and so forth. But the one that I wanted to do was, I just saw the beautiful bay view there and a little bit of light that was coming through on the clouds was hitting that water, you know, so it was shining a little bit, so it gave me that. So I kind of snuck in there, set my camera up on the tripod, and, you know, set it for like 30 seconds for a long exposure, and I ran in there and got into the shot. You know, it was fun. It was like I always liked it. You know, it's just my own self promotion, I guess. But if anyone has any questions as we go along, please do. So that's my artist statement and what next. This was on a summer evening, late afternoon, and this was up towards the top near the clubhouse. But looking at it from looking north, a little bit northwest, and it was really a very pretty day, pretty night. The sun was in, and it was a really soft glow that we had from the sun, you know, with the golden hour coming in. And I remember seeing there and saying, well, I just love the sky. And how can I capture that, you know, to bring that out? So one of the things that I'd like to do is I really wanted to capture something in the foreground to give it a depth of field. Because when I do an image, one of the things I look at is the composition, such as leading lines and so forth that you might have, or patterns and so on. But I also like to have somebody go into the image. So follow it from the foreground, but all the way into the back row of the trees or up into the sky. So you're going into that, you're walking into that as that's the way I see it. And that's what I hope I'm able to project, you know, with my images and doing it that way. And that's one of the things I saw the grasses here, and they were just kind of a little bit of a glow, luminescence to that with the afternoon sun coming in. And it just, it moved me from that standpoint to be able to do that. And I hope you enjoy it as well. This was walking around the course, or the preserve now, is one that I did a lot of hiking when I first went out. And, you know, looking for places where, depending on the light or the time of day, is it going to be a dawn shot in blue hour or golden hour with the sun coming up, or is it going to be more in the afternoon, golden hour and blue hour in the evening? So trying to see, okay, where is the sun going to be going down? Where is it going to be coming up? This kind of thing. And trying to pick out areas that would be very interesting or would show well. And that was one where I was hiking around, and this was, I think, was the 13th hole, which was on the back nine. And when I did a lot of walking initially, trying to find locations, and this was one that was on the bluff of the 13th hole, and there's probably, you can't really tell so much from here, but it's probably a 50-foot drop down that you had to carry in order to get onto the fairway to try to make that par on that hole. You know, so it was always one that, for me, which I'm not a very good golfer, but one was always a challenge to get over that ravine. And so I saw this and said, okay, what really drove me here was not only looking at the distance that I could get into that, but the cloud formation that came up. And this was before dawn that came up. So I was shooting at a slower speed where I had to get fast. Well, I didn't have a lot of light yet, okay, because it wasn't sunrise yet. But the clouds were really bursting in there. So it was really cool. And I liked how the clouds came in. It supported, I believe, the looking down through the fairway, as you can look at it, or the cart path, which is now going to be part of the walking paths that we have, the bike paths that we have now at the Offield Family Viewlands. So it's really very nice to look at. And so I saw that and said, you know, I like it. So I worked with Liz on that one. We kind of debated back and forth. Do we do a color one or do a black and white one? And so she gave me a lot of guidance. And my preference is usually black and white is what I normally shoot. Probably 60-40. But sometimes color just lends itself so well to a lot of the larger ones in the back. But this one was very nice. So I hope you like that. As one of the things we were going to do, we were going to have this exhibit starting in January. And so I was prepared to do it. So I had shot from basically May through October and November, and so I didn't have any snow. And January was coming in saying, well, okay, we need to start to, get things together. And we started to get, finalization of what would be in the exhibit. And we found that because of COVID, that the gallery was going to be closed. So the feeling was, okay, that's not a problem. I can deal with that. And actually, it gave me more time. It gave me time to look at winter on the viewlands, which is totally different. And just so much beauty as well, not only in the summer, in the spring or in the fall, but having it now in the winter, where you have different types of terrain you deal with, or different types of light you deal with, and so on, and going in and trying to look at areas that would bring itself up. This was one by the pond, and there's a number of images by the pond that I've done. This one was late afternoon, golden hour on the pond, and what I did was I went down, I saw the light against the trees. I have some nice clouds, which lends, I really enjoy taking cloud images and bringing that in. But the glow on the trees and also on the reeds there that were still standing and so forth from the earlier part of the summer, they just kind of just glowed for me. And they really illuminated. So I went down, and it's almost in, the pond was frozen, thankfully, but so I went down, but I got really close to it so I could capture the reeds there and also capture the sun on the trees and a little bit of the clouds and got some of the shadows and so on. And that was nice to do. It was just a beautiful afternoon. And winter was kind of a challenge for me because there was a lot of gray skies here in northern Michigan in winter. And trying to find a sun dawn, or a dawn where you had some sun coming out, or a sunset where you had some clouds or some cover and so forth, some color, was always a challenge. And I remember going to the viewlands a lot in early morning and late at night, trying to find that, just kind of going there, well, not tonight, driving back home. But fortunately, it did work out to where I was able to get some shots in that were from the winter portion.
You guys, you won't be on camera if you're behind me, so there you go.
One of the things I wanted to do was, I also wanted to take some macro shots. And this is where you get close into like flowers and bushes and so forth and bring that in. This one is not from the viewlands. This is from another LTC property, the Offield Family Preserve off of 119. And they have just a beautiful array of trilliums there that you can just walk through. A beautiful path into it. It's just gorgeous. And I highly recommend it. You take some time. It's just right past the farm on 119. You walk in there. It's a nice parking lot. You just walk through there and you're just astounded by all the trilliums there. So this was a macro shot where I had one already opened and then another one emerging. So it was kind of my artist statement or the artistic side of it, where I really wanted to bring that out. The softness of the trilliums, and which is a state flower, and one that I wanted to bring in. And I thought it would work well within this exhibit as well. So one other was going through, and this was again in the winter, and this really lent itself for black and white because we didn't have a lot of color. We did have some really interesting clouds. And one of the things that came about was that the pond was frozen and untouched. So there was no track marks on there from animals or people walking and so forth. That I don't know if anyone here did walk on the pond, but at any rate, it was pristine on that standpoint. and I saw the sun coming down and going through the trees, the silhouetting of the trees, and which I wanted to capture. So I waited, you know, until the sun was coming down, and I looked at it and said, okay, here's the trajectory of the sun. Where should I be, and so forth, and getting into position. And then the shadows coming through, just like, oh yes, you know, you get these moments sometimes when you're shooting, you see something in your viewfinder, and it just excites you. And there's so much emotion that comes about with that. And feeling, yes, I want to be able to capture that. I want to be able to share it. And that was one of the moments here, because it was a fleeting moment. It didn't last very long. I mean, the sun was probably another 5 minutes and it's gone. And so were the shadows. But being able to capture that in that form and having it leading in, so I had a lot of lines coming in, converging together. And I put a little sunburst in there by changing my aperture on my camera so that I would get a little bit of a burst of the sun coming through the trees, which I think added a little bit to it as well. Looking at the pond again, this is in the summer, in the late afternoon. And here, because of the work that's being done in the viewlands now, a lot of the fairways and greens have turned brown. So, and what they're doing is they're planting wild grasses there now and wildflowers. So there's a lot of work that's taking place right now, a lot of nature that's coming in right now that's going to transform these kind of gray areas and so forth, or brown areas that look dead. They're going to turn into grasslands, and it's going to be just marvelous. I mean, it's going to be just so beautiful. And so this is one that I wanted to bring out because I saw the fairway here, which is along this gray side here, but the grasses were nice and green. But I wanted to show kind of this path going in, kind of leading into the trees in the far distance, and with the sky coming out, just brilliantly coming up, you know, with the sun for the setting sun, and having that come in. So I thought it was very pretty with a little bit of a reflection of the trees in the pond. Again, going into this and just kind of walking through that image that you're there and you're sharing it with me.
How do you keep the front illuminated at the back? I mean, whenever I take a picture of the sun of the front of the...
Well, one of the things that I do, excuse me, thanks for your question. I shoot in what's called a raw format on my camera. So my camera doesn't do any post-processing at all. And I shoot with a full frame camera that has a lot of megapixels of detail. And I take the image and I take it back home and I work on it on my computer with Lightroom and Photoshop. And similar to what Ansel Adams would do in his images with a negative, he would do dodging and burning. And dodging and burning is where you're able to now lighten up certain portions of an image or darken certain portions of an image if it's too light. And that's what Ansel Adams really perfected tremendously in his images, because he just used the negative. I have a lot more flexibility because I'm on a computer. I can change a lot of things, but I try not to. I try to keep it as simple and basic as possible, where I'll just bring in more light or darkness. So reduce the highlights or reduce the shadows, that kind of thing, and bring it that way. So that's the way we go about it. Great, thank you.
Ray, while you're taking a sip, may I put Derek on the spot and ask what's going to happen with that pond?
The pond? Well, the pond has a clay or a liner in it, so it's not a natural bottom. We're not going to do too much. We don't want to push that liner. But we're going to put a lot of vegetation along the sides, some shrubs. We actually plant some wildflowers, flowering shrubs along the side. And yeah, keep the view open from the fairways on top.
Putting fish in it?
We're probably, if someone comes to us with an idea or a plan, say we want to stock this in fish, we might be open to that idea. Probably won't do it ourselves. Okay.
Actually, that leads me to another question. Obviously, I've spent a fair amount of time in here and thinking about the landscape. And obviously, it's so picturesque. And I know, Ray, that has a lot to do with your eye and how you framed it and what you're bringing to the space. But I think about it in terms of being a former golf course and that it was a very designed space to begin with. So I'm not sure you played the course. You work the property, Derek. I'm not really sure who wants to speak to that, but when I'm looking at these rolling hills and these perfectly placed little clumps of trees, was that by man or was that by nature? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think some of it was originally was nature, obviously, but then coming in and when they put the hole in and cut that in, you know, they changed that landscape, they changed that terrain and so forth. And sometimes they added trees. Most of the times they probably took trees away to do that and cut into that.
Yeah, I would agree. It was strategic leaving of trees in that place there.
Well, the sand traps were only made, right?
Yes, they did some significant earth moving. Some of those rolling hills actually were earth moving. It wasn't the natural topography.
You're leaving the sand traps?
We are leaving the sand traps for now. Yep. There might be a neat open area within some of the woodlands that we're planting, or the grass.
Continue that. I've always liked the minimalist portion of having it just a tree in the middle of a field. Okay? And it talks a lot, you know, having that stone tree or something that you have in the middle of a cornfield or something. So I looked around for where is there just a plain tree or tree that I can bring out. And this was in the back 9 on the preserve itself. So I mean, there's all kinds of areas that you can go into. So this was in the back, and it was in the fall, and it was late afternoon, and you could see the grasses that started to turn from green and starting to turn golden there. And they were really catching some of the light. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but I'm really, really low, and I'm shooting up on a hill that's up there. And but I also had some nice clouds coming in with the blue sky, so that added to, you know, help break up that sky for us. And it's just a nice simple way of looking at it and enjoying it. This was another winter shot, and towards the end, actually, of my shooting, when we're starting to get to a point where we needed to kind of, you know, officially cut bait, you know, on getting the exhibit together and all the images. And so looking at this one, and Liz wanted this one to be the artist statement, and, so but I won't know. Okay. But it's a favorite image, and we went back and forth. This was it was almost blue umber, actually. The sun had gone down, and the cloud, and it was a nice, pretty cloud or sky that we had, bluish sky in the winter, and it was nice in that. But I looked at it both in color and also in black and white, and we looked at it and said, you know, the black and white just has stronger feeling to it because of the steps of where people had walked through, snowshoed through, and so on, and the bench. You know, it's still got the dynamics of the clouds coming in and the sky, but it popped more from the standpoint of being able to bring out those steps and where people had come before and sat and reflected at the bay coming there, and many other people will be doing the same thing. So it was a great addition to the terrain that they added, the bench. And there's a couple of benches that they added there now. So,
Right, is that the old first tee there?
This is actually the first tee is over to the side here. Yep, it's right by the clubhouse, and which is where the restaurant's at, and which is going to be now for they're going to have events there, and they're going to open up the kitchen for I think the caterers and so forth for events. So
it's the top of the practice ring.
Right. Well, FYI, Golf Digest once said that was the most beautiful first tee in the world.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, it was. I mean, you stand up there. Look.
I like that one because it has an implied narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think that somebody was sitting there, you think it's the story.
Yeah.
To that, you know, it makes it feel personal, a little more personal.
It does, yeah.
Really, very nice.
Yeah, it's a nice shot. This is another one of my macro images, and again, I was trying to bring in a little bit more of some of the bushes and the flowers that we have on the viewlands. And I was going through, and I went out for a dawn shoot on the back 9, and I was looking at the sun. Just it was coming in, and for some reason I just didn't find something that I liked, and so I was trying to find something that, okay, I wanted a nice soft light, and it was a pretty harsh light, but towards later in the morning, some clouds came in and kind of broke it up a little bit. And so pretty close to where there's a trailhead on the back 9, I saw some sumacs, and what I went through, I saw the light coming in and hitting this one bush. So I got my macro lens out, I got really close to it and started taking some images. And what I did there was that I opened it up from an aperture standpoint, so I have so much of a blurred background, so bokeh as they call it, and wanting to just really capture the leaves and capture the light that was on those leaves and the red on it. So. And then continuing on, this was a fall shot as well, a milkweed first. And this was actually a much different day. This was kind of a rainy, cloudy day, a little bit of wind and so forth. And I'm coming down where the practice green was at by the first tee, and I'm coming down the hill because I'm looking again for some other bushes or something to shoot. And I saw this milkweed and how it had burst open. It was on the hillside. And so I was able to kind of get my camera in front of it, so I reduced the amount of wind coming into it. But it was just kind of, I felt so pretty because I saw the seedlings there, you know, with the part of the milkweed that were going to be blowing off shortly because the wind was pretty strong and it was going to come in and it was going to be gone shortly. And I don't know if you can look a little bit close, but you can see a little bit of water beads on some of the strands and so forth. So it's just one of those times, and it's a fleeting moment and one that you want to be able to capture and share. So. This is an interesting, what would I say? This was a bit of manipulation. Okay, this was 7 shots that I did as a panorama, and I wanted to catch the Louise comet that was still in its last phase here that we were going to be able to see, and I had to wait for a clear day, a clear night, I should say. And I went up half a dozen times or something up to the viewlands, and I'm waiting for a clear night. And finally one came in. And so what I did was I set up, and I had to set up my tripod, and everything that I shoot is done on a tripod. So I'm meticulous from that standpoint. You know, I don't handle very often. But so I set it up, and what I wanted to do was capture the Milky Way coming in and also the comet. So I had to do 7 shots kind of in sequence, turning it. And then what I did when I got back to my lab or my studio, I merged those together into a panorama. Did that, and then brought out the Milky Way. You can see the lights of Petoskey here. A little bit of, this would be Harbor Springs down over near that area. So that's where light is. This is actually won an award, best picture in Michigan Scenic photo contest for the night shot. So I was very happy about that. And it was a little bit of work trying to get that all together and merge together. But it's kind of a unique image. We have that, have both of those at the same time, because it's probably about maybe 150 degrees of viewing. Okay, so let's try and bring that in.
Tell us a little bit about the finishing process, the difference between the frameless works that are glossier and the framed ones are more fun.
Thank you. One of the things that I did was I normally shoot a 20 or 20 by 28 is my image size that I shoot, and because I can print it myself. So I have an Epson printer, professional inkjet printer, and I use Epson metallic paper, which gives me some luminescence. I do it as a not a gloss, but more of a luster paper, and so it brings out a luminescence for me, a little bit of pop. And it's a nice paper to work with. It's archival, as is my inks. They're pigment inks doing that. But I wanted to do something larger as well. And it was, I think, just my own reason for wanting to do something more grand in doing it. So the next way I could have done it would be a canvas. I could have it printed on a canvas, but I wanted, canvas tends to be very nice, but I wanted something to be more, how would I say? Bring out more luminescence, more detail. Okay, I try to bring out as much detail as I can in my images. So what I went to, which I've done a number of times before, was going on to aluminum. So this is a summation on aluminum, and it's done in a lab in New York for me. And that's all they do. They just do it's a photo lab that they only do it on aluminum, and it's recycled aluminum that they use. And it's in Brooklyn, New York. So really a great place, and they do a very nice job. So I had those done, and basically I had to take my images and I had to size them for the size of the print. So the smaller ones are 30 by 40 inches, and the larger ones are 40 by 60 inches. Okay, so basically I took my images and I expanded those to be exactly that same size. And have that detail.
And then you send them electronically.
Send them electronically, upload them onto their website, and order them that way. And then a week later, 2 weeks later, I'm able to get it back. Yeah.
Really stunning.
Do they have a thick coating on them? To make
There's a coating on them as well. These can actually go outside. They're UV protected. And so it's a great process. And I was thinking of this or lucite was another one that was, or an acrylic I was thinking, but the aluminum, I've been using that. And I haven't gone to the acrylic and haven't tried that yet. One of the things on my list.
Jill, I had my crew all gloved and all careful. Ray comes in, he's like, "Oh, I've never seen him get scratched." Like,
So in terms of archival elements, they should last forever, like a playing friend or.
Yeah, it would be. They talk something like 70 years, something like that. They obviously, if they're in direct sunlight, I mean, it's going to be more if they're outside, you know. But I'm thinking about putting them into an exhibit, you know, where it might have some outside images and so forth. So it could work there for a short period of time. All right, you know, not in the winter.
Do they handle sunlight, say, in a home?
Yeah, there's a UV protection.
Is it better than handling of the non-aluminum ones?
Well, the ones that I do here, there is, but the glass I use on these is it's a conservative glass, and it's 98% UV protection on it, and a clear glass or frosted, I guess I should say. So it reduces the amount of glare and so forth. So, yeah. This is again the pond, and this was in a summer afternoon or towards, well, I guess it was more midday actually, thinking about it, because I did have light coming in here, but I did get some good light in the sky coming in. I had some sun coming through there, so it really did pop for me. There's a lot of growth now by the pond with the reeds coming up. And again, I got very, very close down into the pond with my camera, and was able to bring out the foreground and then have that kind of going into the sky itself. So. This was on the back nine, and this was a par 3 hole. And if you remember on the back nine, they had to cross the road to get to without the 13th coming back down. But it has a very nice split rail fence. And that's one of the things that I always try to look at. It's a leading line for me. It gives you some framing and so forth of an image. And this one was actually a 3-shot panorama that I did because I wanted to get the foreground and the fence. I wanted to get the clouds. So I took 3 images and then put them together. And where I had that now, the full image that I wanted to come out that way. So I was able to bring that out. And I was really enthralled by the road on the left and then the fairway or the grassland over here, the hills coming in, and then supported by a little bit of the trees for part of the framing, and then with the clouds coming in. So for an afternoon. But we finally come into some of the fall shots. This was a fall morning on the back 9, and kind of an area where there was some. Let's see. That was close to that. It was close to where I took the image of the sumacs, and the sumacs were actually right behind me at another time. But what I liked about this one was I had some nice sky coming in, some nice clouds, but I also had a warning fog through the mid-ground there. And it just kind of, I saw that, I said, oh, I have to capture that. And sometimes you see something and it's so hard to capture in your camera because it's, you see some rain coming in or something and you say, oh, that's so beautiful, but you try to get it in the camera and you just lose it because it's so flat. But
that brings me to the question, right? So when all these shots, when you take them, do you know that you've captured it, or is it not until you get back into the studio that you find that that is a?
I think mostly when I see something, I get pretty excited about it, and I think I got it. And sometimes I don't. When I come back, and I ask my editor, Rita, my wife, what do you think of this one? It doesn't do anything for me. Geez, I was so excited about it. But so it's but a lot of times I'll see something, I'll say, yeah, I mean, this is, I just get that feeling, and it's like I feel good about it, and then when I go back, it motivates me to work on it, to bring it out the way I saw it. And a lot of times it is. I mean, the way I pictured it might not be, how it was in the camera, especially in the raw format, because it is really flat when it comes out of the camera. So you have to look at it and say, oh yeah, wait. These grasses were much brighter here. I felt that. So, but this was, so thanks for your question. But here we were getting the fall colors coming in, the viewlands, and that was started to be so beautiful from that standpoint. And then with that little bit of fog coming in or haze that we had, worked out well. Get into some colors. So this one was really an interesting day. It was, I went out in the morning and there was, I looked out in the sky from my house and I saw red skies. And I remember my mother telling me when I was growing up, red skies in the morning, sailors take morning. So that always stuck with me. I said, okay, it's going to be a beautiful day. But what happened was that the red sky came in, but there was a gale that came through the northern part of Michigan, and so a lot of wind. And I remember going out, and because it looked like it was going to be nice, or it would be a good shoot. And I remember standing up by the first tee, looking out towards the bay, and the wind is blowing. I'm having a hard time keeping my camera steady on the tripod. There were a couple other photographers out there. They scurried back. I'm out there. But it started raining, and then all of a sudden, lightning starts coming out to the north of me. I'm thinking, no, this is not good. And it's almost like that one I was standing up there. So no, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna sit in the car. And I think I was gonna go home. And I thought, oh, let me wait a while. And I did, and the lightning abated and finally moved on. And so I went down and started trekking down the hill towards the number 9th hole, towards the tee down there. And I came in and down the hill, near the tee area is down here, the green is back up in here. The star, so sunset had already gone down. Okay, so it was getting dark, but then the skies just lit up. And I saw the skies and oh, this is gorgeous. So right away, I'm trying to find, okay, where can I place my camera? Where can I get a composition of this? And I wanted to have something that there wasn't much of a foreground at all, but I did try to bring in some framing with the trees on the left. I got very close to that. I had some trees over here. So it gave me a little bit of frame to the image itself from a composition standpoint. And then the skies, and I was just taking shots, and so I'm shooting, and I burst like 3 at a time, different exposure levels. So I did 20, 30 shots, and then I found which one was the best. They had the clouds that I wanted and the colors that I wanted, and to bring that out. But it was just a magnificent evening.
It's interesting. It's like shooting a sporting event.
Yeah. I mean, it lasts. It doesn't last long. It lasts, sometimes just a few seconds. Sometimes, a couple of minutes. Yeah, it's fleeting.
These are not color enhanced.
It's what it is. I brought out some saturation in it. Okay, in doing that, some vibrance in it. I didn't change any of the colors. Okay, in it. What I did was I did some lightning here so I could get this to show that was like, because it was pretty dark actually in doing it.
Well, Ray, this might be technical. I'm not a photographer. So I know that I've caught skies like that driving, past the lake. And one time I remember pulling over, like trying to capture this on my phone. The colors looked nothing like what they did in real life. So when you are manipulating your digital image, and again, images have been manipulated since the darkroom. Are you trying to emphasize a little bit of drama? Are you trying to capture what it felt like at that time? Like what's going through your process?
What I felt. Okay, so bringing that out. I mean, I did see the colors and I saw the reds coming up. So what I would look at, I would say, okay, well, I want to say, or bring up the red color. So in illumination, so like a burning that you're going to be, or dodging, I should say, bringing that up. And I want to maybe darken some of the blues, the sky, next. So that would be like a dodging and burning from a color standpoint.
Do you ever find one spot, like maybe there, that you would decide to go and take it a 4-season shot? Here it is in the winter with the snow. Here it is with the color of the leaves, no leaves.
Yeah. It's a good question, and some people have asked me about it, and I'm thinking that I will do that. My whole intention here was to promote the viewlands and to capture images as I was going along. And then to build an exhibit was the secondary goal that I had. Now going back, I think it would be nice to go back and say, okay, a year from now, when I went out and I took, this image, what does that look like now? Okay, so you're repeating it, and you're showing the transition also from a nature standpoint of how this is coming about and really being reclaimed by nature. Yeah. This one is probably one of my favorites, and this is one that really I think started me off. I mean, trying to do more on the viewlands, and this was done the same day as the second image that we went through, okay, which was, but this is looking in a different direction. This is looking south, looking at the bay, but it was an afternoon sun, and the sun was coming in and out, and I saw, I love the bay, I love the view. The first tee is over here, John, and so, but kind of looking at the valleys. And so again, I tried to minimize that it was a golf course, and I wanted to show, okay, just the beauty of the vistas that we have there. So bring that in, and I saw some nice foliage here. So I got down on the hillside there. I got close to some of the foliage. So I had this in focus, and then shooting out. And when I waited probably maybe half an hour because the sun was just either totally there, everything was bright, or everything was dark or gray, not gray, but shadowy. And what I wanted to look at was the light going through and kind of weaving its way through that hillside, through that valley, where I had fingers of light coming in and through that, and some shadow areas. And I just felt it broke that up, and it just made for just a pretty image. This was one of the things I think that Little Traverse Conservancy used a lot in the promotion of the viewlands. It was in magazine, North Traverse magazine, but yeah, North Traverse. Yeah, Traverse magazine. Okay, so it was in there. So I got some good accolades from my Facebook friends and so forth, and some of the awards that they had for best of the month. So,
Ray, was the wind coming from the east based on the two big trees in the center right?
No, I don't recall coming in. It wasn't that windy. It didn't feel that windy coming in. You think the trees are being pushed back? Or,
yeah.
Oh, okay. But here we're going to be looking, the wind's coming. This is basically looking west here. So, so I'm looking south, and west is over here a little bit. Okay, so I'm heading, yeah, southwest. Yeah. This was another one in the fall, and this was a rainy day, and what I did was, again, I was looking for color in the fall, and the sumacs were really bursting, and wanted to try to find something, and I came through around between the practice area and then also the ninth fairway. There was a little ridge, and I crossed the ridge, and I looked up. As I crossed the ridge, I looked up, and there was this pine tree up here, but there was a whole slew of sumacs that were in bloom there, or just red in color. And so I got down on my knees and got my camera close to the sumacs and shot up because I wanted to catch the tree and a little bit of the sky. And then right after I took it, it started to rain. So it was just like a fleeting moment coming in.
When you get on your knees, where's the tripod?
It's down below. My tripod can go basically down to here. And I can lay on my belly with the tripod. So with the extension legs on it. So. Okay. Well, that's a good question. No, I have one that travels pretty well. Put in my suitcase. This was actually the first image that I took, and you can see that it was early May. There wasn't much foliage coming up around the pond. It was an afternoon sun, but I had some good clouds coming in. It was kind of blowy because you can see the pond had a lot of ripples in it and so on. So again, it was just, I felt it was nice because it was kind of like a new birth start in the viewlands. And this was one way to kind of bring that out and capture it.
Ray, when did the golf course actually close?
It closed up in 2019. Okay, it was acquired in, I think, February or something, or March.
It was April of 2020.
Oh, 2020.
Yeah, we officially began up this stuff.
Yeah, and I think I went in before it was official. I didn't walk it actually.
Well, yeah, it was a golf course. There was another landowner in between when the Conservancy owned it.
When did it open?
The golf course? When did the golf course
open? The Viewlands.
April. Yeah.
I'm sorry, golf course.
Our golf course was late 70s or early 80s.
This was one of the winter shots that I took in. As I mentioned earlier, that We are.
Yeah, we're at 6, but you've only got 2 more. So.
Okay. So this is one going out trying to find a dawn shot, some sun, some sky. It was nothing but gray before, and like 6 or 8 times I went out. Finally, there was some sky that was color in it, and not much of a sunrise, but yet the sky was there. So I skirted around trying to find, okay, what's in the foreground? What can I focus in on the foreground to give me some sense of scale? Looking down the hole, a nice view of the lake over there, and a little bit of not reflection, but a little bit of shine on the lake. And for our last one, this was a morning shot, and it was just another beautiful one. I was going out looking for a sunrise in the back nine. So I was hiking through, and I'm waiting for the sun to come out. It wasn't coming out, and so, but then the sky started to really start to break, turning red for me, pink, and oh God, it was just beautiful. And so I was able to find some nice grassland to look at. Looking down, I really wanted to capture the light on the lake out there. I think that's Crooked Lake. And being able to bring that out, and then it just burst with pink and reds and purples for me. And again, I brought that out a little bit more, okay, but it was just such a gorgeous morning. And that's how I felt when I saw it. It was one that, this is the excitement that I got out of it. And I wanted to capture that or share that excitement. With that, any questions? Or, well, first I want to thank you again for coming and joining me as I walk around this. It was really so moving for me, because this was also during COVID, and this was a chance to get out and feel nature. And it was so gratifying, and it just made things much better for us, for my wife and I and our family. So it was one that nature brings so much to us. And the intent here is to share that nature with you so that you go out and see these places yourself. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Liz and all of us orchestration that happens behind the scenes that even I have no idea the communication that goes on and the effort. And thank you to the local Traverse Conservancy for bringing this wonderful space to the community. And it's just a gift for all of us. And like you said, during the pandemic, it was an incredible place, I know, for my family to be, and then to watch that connection of nature and art. And again, we're so thankful that you are all here today as our first real thing happening back after the pandemic. We're thrilled to have you and look forward to seeing you very soon at one of our next events in exhibit opening. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, just in closing, this show is up through June 1st. So bring everybody through this holiday weekend, and we're really glad you're here. There are some brochures and maps if you want to check out some more of Little Traverse Conservancy properties, and another show down the hall if you haven't had a chance to take a look. Yes, it is. It is. It is.
That's the one I have.
And your guild group says thank you, Ray.
I'm